Welcome to the Center for Safety, Equity, and Transportation. This is the first webinar or presentation of research done sponsored by the Center in 2023. Jeff Ban and Daniel Abramson are going to be presenting their work on drone technologies for safety and resilience of rural, isolated, tribal, and indigenous communities, which is one of the primary focus areas of the center. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff Ban and Daniel Abramson of the University of Washington, one of the collaborator universities within the CSET Center, University Transportation Center Tier 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you everyone for joining the seminar and for or watching the video afterwards. My name is Jeff Ban. I'm a faculty member of the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department of UW. And Dan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, and I'm Daniel Abramson. Dan Abramson, Associate Professor of Urban Design and Planning at the University of Washington.
Thanks, Dan. We also, over the years, we have a number of students who worked with us on this project, including Ethan Zhang, Sarah Lukens, Christina Calhoun, and Ziyang Liu. We also appreciate their work. So maybe next slide, Dan. Okay, so this is an outline of the project. But before I start, I really wanted to thank CSET for their support in the last almost 5 years on this investigation, including 3 projects that allowing us to basically explore the idea of using drones to help the RTI communities. Anyone who works in those communities understand that the most important step is to really outreach to folks there and really build a trust and identify the most appropriate project or needs that the technology can help. So we share some of those experience and insights on this. So the presentation will have 3 major parts. After the introduction, we talk about research approaches, including outreach activities, online surveys, and also pilot study and programs, then conclude the talk. So today's presentation, I will cover introduction and some of the research approach, mainly the outreach and online survey, and then we'll mainly cover the 2 pilot studies and programs that we have conducted so far, more recent research on this. Then next one. Okay, so the rural, isolated, tribal, and indigenous communities, we sort for RTI communities, they face many challenges, and also in our Pacific Northwest region, there are many such communities in Alaska, Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. So this is common challenges to all our 4 states. So generally, as we can show those statistics, there are, according to the NISTA's report, 45% of the traffic fatalities occurred in the rural areas, and the fatality rate is twice as high as the as urban areas. So in Washington, particularly, our project focusing on is if you look at fatality, serious injuries, or it's about 20% more than the state average, and also a large portion, 25% of the rural roads are in the poor conditions. So those are the challenges that are faced by those communities. Then next one. Okay, so as one of the challenges related to resilience or the emergency preparedness is we here saw 2 slides, 2 pictures. One is regarding the king tide, how that impacts the communities. Basically, the water will overflow some of the lowlands, and the right figure shows the earthquake impact, maybe more impact on this. And for those communities facing those challenges, you have to think about strategies to mitigate. One way is to move folks in the lowlands to highlands, right? So relocate people that create a lot of challenges in terms of design, and also they're addressing their transportation and other needs. Like this is particularly so during the transition period. It may take a couple of years, if not longer, to do the relocation, and how you address people's traffic transportation needs and other related needs is really something that the community need to consider. Next one. Okay, so sort of exaggerated by these challenges is, for the rural communities or the RTR communities in particular, many of them are, because they're in the no growth areas, so they don't have a particular, transportation planning process in place, so that it's harder for them to address those changes, and that's we just indicated earlier, like to move people from low to highlands. Another aspect is that, the emerging technologies, which we've been talking about, for example, the connected autonomous vehicles and others, the main focus is on urban areas, and people have spent lots of time and development and research on urban areas, including some of the testing that happening mainly in urban areas. So the rural areas or the RTR communities are not really their main focus. So using technologies to address those current challenges also, face those kind of issues, as we can see from here. Next one. So for this project from about a couple of years ago, when we start this, we really think about how the main idea is really like how technologies here, drones particularly, how this can help the RTR communities. So because drones has been showing that can be helpful for many aspects, like here we list a few, including transportation infrastructure monitoring, repair, traffic volume collection, disaster search and rescue, supply, delivery and agriculture, and the list can go on. So we also think the drones is probably a particular technology that we can better adopt it in the RTR communities, because there are fewer high-rise buildings that block the site, because when you fly drones, you need to have the drones in your line of sight. So it might be helpful to use drones to, mitigate or help some of the issues we just talked about, and also help develop so-called context-sensitive solutions to the communities. So this was some of the early thoughts we had, and we started to explore those in the last couple of years, and we did go through the process and figure out some aspect that the drones can indeed help, as we will elaborate more in this presentation. So next one. As it's the keyword is it varies a lot in terms of the size, in terms of their power, in terms of the data collection or the sensing technologies, positioning technologies, or in terms of how heavy the things they can carry, go from the civil use to military use. But here we mainly focus on the civil use drones that's we apply to this project. We also apply different type of drones for different pilot study, and we will elaborate more in the later slides. Next one. So the goal of our research is really, to first to understand the current some of the challenges, issues, or needs related to, we focus on the traffic safety, and also resilience or emergency preparedness in these communities, and to really understand this and try to build the connection and help them to explore and develop the so-called context-sensitive solutions using the drone technologies. So that's our kind of overarching goal of this project for the last couple of years. The study area, as I indicated earlier, is we mainly focus on the outer Pacific coast of Washington. It's in the Gary Harbor County region, but particularly on the city of Westport. That's what we also work with fire authorities and also the school district for different aspects of the project. Next one. So we did brainstorming at the beginning about the what the zone can do. I listed some of the project, but particularly for the Westport region or the Gary Harbor region, we were thinking about for emergency situations. We were talking about the warning messages spreading, telecommunication. If it's down, then the drones can be helped to as a link to recover those communication for delivery, for goods and even medicine, and for infrastructure monitoring and repair, and even certain rescue. That's also important for the emergency situations. And it also can be used for daily purposes, like the fire or police department can look at, can monitor the fire conditions and do delivery or look at the infrastructure, or even, help the traffic accident. Like if it's in a really remote area, hard or takes time for people to access, then the drones might help to check the situation, or data collection. That's always important use of the drones. So next slide. So next couple slides, I give some sort of introduction of this study region, which is mainly the Westport area, as you can see from this figure. I think, Dan, can you press the button one more time? It's probably. Oh, can you go up? Go back? No, sorry, go back one more time. One more time. Oh, I have some text, but it's sort of missing. So can you go down? Just press one. Okay, all right. So I have some text describing the Westport area, like the population and the location and things like that. But that's
Jeff, it's in the notes on this slide right here. Do you see the notes? Oh, I'll let me read them because you're
okay,
presenting from my computer. Yeah, okay. This is a small rural community on the tip of a peninsula on the southern side of Grays Harbor, as you could see in the slides. And the population is just a little over 2,000 people. It's a major fishing port, though, one of the top 5 to 10 ports on the Pacific coast for landing commercial fish and seafood. And it has oyster breeding, seafood processing, growing amount of tourism, shrinking amount of recreational fishing, but it still has a very large marina. It's the largest marina on the outer coast, as it's called, or the Pacific coast of Washington State. Yeah, and a quite large seasonal population of seasonal workers and employees who are living in rather precarious circumstances in RV parks and motels and other in temporary housing.
Yep. The upper right picture we saw the main street of Westport, and the right lower picture shows the tsunami vertical evacuation structure in the Acosta School. That's one of the first in North America. Next slide. So the reason we select Westport and also the coastal community is that similar patterns or issues faced by those communities, like sea level rise, the coastal erosion, and also tsunami. That's the challenge faced by many of the coastal areas, and also the poor transportation infrastructure, including the roadway and other poor conditions for the infrastructure. And as I indicated earlier, the Acosta High School built the first vertical structure for tsunami events in the U.S. As you can see from this picture, if tsunami happens, the local residents can gather and use this vertical building structure. It's part of the school as a shelter to sort of escape from the flood and everything from the tsunami. Next one. Okay, so
I would just jump in here, Jeff.
Yeah,
I added this
please.
slide from our final
Yeah.
report, which
Yeah.
just gives
Yeah.
a sense of what proportion of the population and what demographic profile is vulnerable to that kind of flooding. It's a very low-lying peninsula with just a few slender dunes that would be above the level of the inundation in the worst considered case.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. Next one. Well, this come to the summary of the research we did. So it includes our activities like studios, workshops, community meetings, and online meetings. This is mainly conducted in the first phase of the project, 2018-ish. And you can see, the upper picture shows one of those workshops, we discussing with local police, cities and those agencies to look at, the tsunami and how, we could sort of mitigate those kind of disasters. And we also did online survey to mainly to the agency workers like cities and police and National Guards to gather their input or understanding of the needs and concerns in the communities and how the drone technology might help. And also we did in the later phase or the pilot studies or programs in the middle figure shows we use drones to collect the imagery of the region and to help create a digital map of the area. And also we conducted this after-school drone program for the middle school and high school students to learn how to fly drones and how to help the communities. Next. So this shows the more detailed 3 phases or 3 projects of the research we have conducted, and the timeline for this as well, which I sort of elaborated earlier. So next one.
Oh, before you jump forward, I just wanted to add in here, Jeff, something rather important from the early stages of this project. This the City of Westport was undertaking an update to its comprehensive plan, which was something that they didn't have to do, as we showed on an earlier slide. Most of the rural counties and their communities and incorporated cities are not required to undergo that level of planning. But Westport has chosen to do so, and it was quite progressive and willing to have our studio actually draft the update for its consideration and approval, which included adding a whole telecommunications and drone technology usage element to the transportation and traffic circulation part of the plan.
Yeah, and it's adopted in a formal plan, right?
That's right.
Yeah, next. Yeah, so this slide shows some of the details of the studio. I think Dan, the main instructor, taught those studio, basically students, faculty, using, it's a 3 hours, if I understand correctly, long kind of class for them to really work with the community to identify what are the assets, the values community have, and also how to identify the concerns and their needs of this. There's also 2 workshops, one with in the Westport, South Beach area to look at similar needs in the community, and also another one 2019 for the National Guard workshop to look at issues in the community. Yeah, next. Oh, this is we also conducted community meetings and online meetings for similar purposes. So the main of this is try to really reach out to a broader community in the Westport, including public, government agencies and National Guard in this sense, and really to try to understand the various aspects of the challenges in the community and to sort of figure out what's the, how the drone technology can help. So there's also next one. I saw the survey. Yeah, we conducted online surveys about how the drones might be used for normal situations and also the emergency situations, which probably is not shown in the slide, but we also did that. And also, what are the challenges of using those, right? So, as you can see from here, the cost is, of course, one of the concerns. And, there's training is listed at number 2, which means, they probably don't have the expertise to really, even you have the technology of the drones, but there's lack of people who can fly them. That's also an issue that, when something happens, you cannot use them. So next one. Okay, so I think Dan, you will take over from here. Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to also point out how this project really levered a lot of other work. We began earlier even than CSET with engaging the coast on Cascadia subduction zone related hazards from earthquakes and co-seismic hazards such as tsunamis, landslides, ground subsidence and so forth through the NSF Hazard Seas Program's M9 project, as well as a range of U.S. Department of Transportation University Transportation Center research and private nonprofit foundation research on building community adaptive capacity. So there was quite a lot of other work that this project through CSET levered. And this allowed us actually more subsequently to work with the NERI Rapid facility at the University of Washington, funded by the NSF, to use some really sophisticated drone technology from the university first, and to sort of use that to demonstrate to the community what they might be able to do with the skills that they develop through a much smaller, more modest program. And whether this was going to be at the school or not really wasn't clear at the very beginning. But that turned out to be a way that in this small community with very limited city staff, essentially, I mean, there's a handful of people who work for the city, limited fire department, nobody available really to be just a specialist in drone operations. So it was important to try to make the training as broadly based in the community as possible, which might mean involving parents, it might mean involving volunteers and coaches in extracurricular activities at the school. And then the school, being the site of that first vertical evacuation structure, is really a leading institution in the nation, and exhibited quite a lot of local capacity or local political will to think broadly about future survival, because this was funded entirely by local taxpayer money, which was not a lot. This is a low-income community, so there was no federal subsidy, as there is now, for adding vertical evacuation capacity into buildings. They had to pay for that entirely on their own. So we wanted to demonstrate really with NERI rapid equipment and technology what data could be gathered, and it was much more extensive than most communities would be able to do, but it is all available publicly now through the HazMapper tool, which is accessible through Design Safe at the University of Texas. And if you're interested, we can go to this browser website after the presentation to explore this a little bit. But what we did was, so these are some of the more expensive types of drones that the center deployed in order to gather that data. And they created effectively a 3D model of high resolution 3D model of the entire peninsula. which later many of our graduate students and some undergraduates in the design programs in the College of Built Environments at the University of Washington, seniors and master's students in architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design and planning use the data to visualize interventions that have not taken place yet, but that are being planned in a broad sense by the community for additional vertical evacuation structures. And so you can sort of see from this video what a model of the environment that integrates with the data flown by the drones could produce in terms of visual, showing that integration. This was then used to show the community what could be done, and to excite and motivate the students at the junior and senior high school levels to get involved. And to make it really real for them. So the whole point here is really to have this rather specialized function of serving as a place of refuge, creating places of refuge in a rare and consequential event such as a tsunami, how that could really relate to places and spaces that people use on a daily basis and really know through their everyday lives. So I'm just going to stop this image here. Move on to the next slide, which talks specifically about what the after-school drone program involved. So this is not built into the curriculum yet, but it's an extracurricular activity that was designed to train students to eventually get their licenses to pilot drones once they're 16 years old, but also to raise broader community awareness through their families, and others who are involved with extracurricular activities at the school or who just live around the school to become aware of how these drones might be useful and raise awareness about environmental change, the need for infrastructure monitoring and the potential for infrastructure repair and maintenance, and then also where to go and what, how to evacuate from a sudden event like an earthquake and a tsunami. We had a lot of support from the community for this, from the mayor all the way through the public works department, police, parents of the school, teachers, after school program staff, the regional fire authority, and the YMCA locally in Grays Harbor County. And we were also inspired and informed by an interesting new pedagogy that's emerging about how to integrate drone technology into education. As this book lays out for university level students, we didn't quite go into the depth in thinking on socio-technical issues that a university class using drones might, but we used the ethical approach of this pedagogy and tailored it to really having fun with the students and getting them to see this as very accessible and enjoyable creative possibilities in using drones for various, and the data that they gather for various activities. This was roughly the sequence of activity that the program ran through. There was a lot of effort to try to get students to share their ideas about how drones might be useful in the community, but also to teach them how the very practical aspects of assembling them, operating them, knowing what the safety rules are, and working with people who do use them professionally locally. So that included fire and police department staff, included the public works staff, and also the environmental managers. Coastal environmental scientists and emergency managers, official emergency managers. And those drones that the school obtained or that we purchased and used for this program were much simpler than the ones that the Rapid facility deployed, but quite accessible to the students and affordable. So this started out with, just putting them together, taking them apart, putting them back together again, learning the standards for safe and ethical practice and use of drones, getting out with into the campus. You see there the official police drone pilot for the Shoalwater Bay Indian Tribe, which is a neighboring tribal community whose youth go to the Acosta School District. They're part of the Acosta School District for K through 12 education. And so they're also a part of the community, and they actually had a police officer who was skilled enough and focused enough on this to be able to spend some time teaching students how to do it. And then here's an example of some of the uses of the critical infrastructure inspection. It included monitoring hard to get to places, the top of water towers, how to look at the top of the school campus. This is I don't know if you can see my cursor, but we're looking here at on the sort of the upper left, on that right side photo, the long building on the rightmost section of the photograph is the junior and senior high school. Then there's the gym in the middle. And then there's the highest building with the 4 towers in the corner is the vertical evacuation structure as part of the elementary school. And this image is taken from drones that the students flew. We also brought in Washington Sea Grant coastal science staff to teach the students about tides and sea level rise science, and how drones have been used in the neighboring Willapa Bay along the same coast for purposes of monitoring the effects of sea level rise over time on the coastal environment, and also getting the students out into their community to fly the drones and monitor the potential or the likely future effects of sea level rise by looking at king tide events, which in this part of the coast are very high in the winter months, late November through late January. And when combined with storms, can really bring surges and coastal floods to a level that would approximate what sea level rise will do on a more regular basis in the future. So this was quite an important piece of data that students were gathering, and also relating to places in the community that they got to know well. And this became important because once the students did look at these parts of the community, they were then able to participate in some design for the parks that would need to be made flood resilient and other open spaces that the city was investing in. I'll be showing a bit more about that in a minute. But at the end of that academic year of 2021, 2022, the students then came to Seattle to participate at the ASCE International Conference on Transportation and Development in Seattle, presented a poster of their work. That's them there with Yinhai Wang, Professor Wang, who is the organizing committee chair of the conference. They visited the University of Washington, saw the studio work at the College of Built Environments to see what they might do as college or graduate students with the information, including the work of one master's student who was working with them and doing her thesis on this very project. And then they visited the RAPID facility itself with all of its technology and equipment. This is what some of the other things that happened in parallel with the CSET funded activity involved. As I was mentioning, once they got familiar with the environment through flying drones and visiting the sites and comparing them to maps, they were then able to use Minecraft as a fun and engaging way to participate in our master's student, Sarah Lukens' landscape architecture and urban planning thesis, which was to work with Port's Public Works Department to design a flood resilient open space in a site along the shore that needed to be bioremediated. And that was the most prone to flooding from king tides or sea level rise in the future. So they actually envisioned some programming, what that space might involve, and that allowed our student in the master's program to design an actual community-based adventure park, which was quite an exciting project. Also, another parallel synergistic project is through the coastlines, the Cascadia Coastlines and Peoples Hazards Research Hub, which was a subsequently funded large Washington, Oregon, and Northern California multi-university project to engage communities and to conduct research on both seismic, Cascadia subduction zone related hazards, but also sea level rise, climate change, and other coastal hazards and changes. And Washington Sea Grant, as a participant in that program, worked with the students in the after school program to create a video that would simulate, from using a drone, simulate a tsunami's eye view of evacuation, of an important evacuation route, with the students actually simulating the walk that they would need to do to get away from the shore to a safe location. And so I can show that video just now. It's just a little over a minute. But the students themselves acted in this, did the voice narration, and also participated in the editing.
Large earthquake hit the coast and City of Westport, a tsunami. Need to get to high ground in under 20 minutes. If you have survival supplies, take it with you every time. While you're on the move, the tsunami is getting higher and approaching the shore. A tsunami along ocean average is higher than the second floor of condos. By efficiently digging yourself into the high ground to make it safe. Stay at high ground to local officials to keep it safe. Dangerous currents can persist for several hours or days. Learn your refuge route and how to be right by standing or going to the floor of your space.
So this short video clip is posted online at Washington Sea Grant's blog page. It is also was also shown at the school as part of their annual drill to evacuate to the roof of the elementary school vertical evacuation structure, which coincided with the Great Shakeout drill, which occurs all along the Pacific Northwest coast for Cascadia earthquake and co-seismic hazards. And the Washington military's emergency management division staff were there to help promote this material and to include it in their outreach. So there were many benefits, or continue to be. This project is ongoing. When these students reach the age of 16, we expect they will be able to obtain their drone licenses, take their license test. They will also have learned some skills that will be useful directly, potentially in internships and jobs with local agencies. They will certainly be trained and available to well situated and knowledgeable to participate in university research. So we hope that they will apply to our programs as undergraduates and then ultimately graduates to work with us on these projects, which do involve students at every level, all the way up through doctoral and up to postdoctoral research and science. So there's quite a pathway for higher education that we are building with this program. I would say that in terms of our concluding remarks, and Jeff, you can always just jump in and add at the end here with what anything that I have neglected to say, but you know, one of the most important lessons and I would say ethical principles that are guiding this work or that we've gained from this work is how important it is to find multiple uses of this technology in a small community, that you cannot rely on very specialized staff. Everybody wears many hats. The public works director that is our lead, our chief partner in the City of Westport, is also the coach of the high school wrestling team, and is involved in many different agencies and initiatives in the community, and doesn't really have the time himself to learn this on his own. And therefore, it's really important that he have supporting members in the community who trust him and know him through all these other activities to themselves, you know, be developing this capacity and be available. Sometimes it can be quite informal. So it's really important to find as many different relevances for the technology as possible.
I probably can add then one aspect is we you know, sort of acknowledge our students, but we also wanted to acknowledge the volunteers and you know, public workers and teachers at the local school. Many folks in the community helped us for this project. There are too many that we could list them in one slide, so we didn't do that here. But really, without their support and help, we cannot you know, accomplish those projects. So they're really amazing help from the local community.
Yes, and we do have our email addresses on the very first slide. If you are watching this as a recording, feel free to get in touch with us to learn more about whom we worked with and any more details about what we all accomplished. Yeah,
as you can see that mainly that's part of the presentation that he is mainly also supported by other projects and still working with the community on you know, continuing this and other aspect to help and to do research. And we also think, you know, other emerging technologies in transportation might also be helpful or be first adopted in this kind of communities, maybe like autonomous driving and everything. So we talk about this, but you know, if there's opportunities, we'd be happy to, you know, sort of pilot those as well to really help people in the community. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jeff and Dan, for presenting today. And this is the end of our CSET webinar presentation.
Thank you.